Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going on a little trip. I want you to close your eyes for a second, unless you're driving. Please don't do that. And picture a specific kind of place. Imagine an island.
Okay.
It's small, maybe about 25 square miles. Picture these rugged granite cliffs and these winding little lanes where you literally have to pull your car into the hedge if a tractor comes the other way.
I'm picturing it. And cows. I'm guessing there are cows.
Lots of very famous, very distinct cows. It sounds idyllic, right?
It sounds like a postcard from the 1950s.
Isn't it?
It sounds like the setting of a cozy mystery novel where the biggest scandal is, who won the prize for the largest pumpkin at the village fete.
Exactly. We are talking about the bailiwick of Guernsey. It's a crown dependency, sits in the English Channel right between England and France. And it's known for a few things, sure. Offshore finance is one. But culturally, it's known for being polite.
For stability.
For stability. It's the kind of place where political disagreements are, well, they're traditionally settled over a cup of tea, or maybe a very sternly worded letter to the editor of the local paper.
Consensus is the word. That's the word you always hear associated with Guernsey politics. It's a system designed to be slow, to be thoughtful, and, well, neighborly.
Right. There are no political parties in the way you and I would understand them. Everyone is an independent.
No prime minister barking orders, no party whips. You have committees. Committees making these collective considered decisions.
But today we are walking into a situation that feels completely, utterly alien to that tradition. We are not looking at a polite parish hall meeting.
No.
We are looking at a digital battlefield. We're looking at a scenario that feels, I don't know, less like the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society and a lot more like a season of Black Mirror.
It's a fascinating collision, isn't it? It's a head-on crash between this very old world face-to-face style of island governance and the high-velocity, anonymous, hyper-aggressive warfare of the modern internet age.
So let's set the scene. It is February 17th, 2026. The man at the center of this particular storm is Deputy Mark Leadbeater. He is the president of the Committee for Home Affairs. Now, for our listeners who might not be up to speed on the nuances of Channel Island government portfolios, Home Affairs is the big one.
Oh, it's the portfolio of public safety. It's the muscle of the government, if you want to put it that way. They oversee the police, the fire service, customs, immigration, the prison.
Basically everything that keeps society functioning and safe.
It is the committee that is responsible for, keeping the lights on, the borders secure, and the doors locked.
And right now, the man in charge of all that muscle is claiming that he is under siege. Leadbeater has come out publicly, and this is just in the last few days, claiming that he is the target of a literal small army.
That phrase, it jumped out at me from the source material immediately. A small army. It's incredibly evocative.
It is.
It suggests this isn't just random noise. It's not just a few disgruntled people grumbling. It implies structure. It implies intent and mobilization.
He says this is a highly coordinated campaign to oust him from his job. He's very clear. He claims this isn't just organic anger from unhappy voters. He says it's a plot. He's talking about anonymous enemies, secret Facebook groups, allegations of, and I'm quoting here, orchestrated harassment.
And he even goes a step further. He claims there's a specific individual, a mastermind, pulling all the strings from behind the curtain.
It really does sound like the plot of a political thriller. You've got the beleaguered leader, you've got this shadowy cabal, the relentless digital attacks. But what's so critical here is that Leadbeater isn't just complaining about internet trolls. He's not just saying, people are being mean to me online.
No, his argument is much bigger. He is framing this as a stress test for the entire system of government. He's essentially saying, if they can do this to me, if they can create this much pressure through social media, then the system itself is broken.
And that right there is our mission for this deep dive. We aren't here to decide if Mark Leadbeater is a saint or a sinner.
Not at all.
We aren't here to take sides in the Guernsey political scrum. Frankly, it's far too complex for any outsider to really pick a winner anyway. We are here to unpack this concept of institutional friction.
Right. We want to analyze how a government system that is specifically designed for consensus breaks down when it gets hit with two things at the exact same time. Legitimate, verifiable operational failure on one side.
Which we will get to.
And coordinated digital dissent on the other.
Because whether you are managing a small team at work, sitting on a school board, or just watching the national news, this is a perfect contained case study in leadership under siege. How do you lead when the comment section is calling for your head?
And when that comment section is organized.
Exactly. So let's unpack this. Section 1, the anatomy of the ouster campaign.
Let's start with the specifics of the allegation Leadbeater is making. Because like you said, he isn't saying people are mean to me. Politicians get used to that. It's part of the job description. He is saying people are organizing to destroy me. He identifies and he's very coy about it, a certain Facebook page as the sort of headquarters of this rebellion.
Which is such a uniquely modern problem, isn't it? The revolution will not be televised. It will be posted on a community Facebook page, probably sandwiched between a post about a lost cat and an ad for a secondhand sofa.
But look at the tactics he describes. He talks about digital populism, which is a great term. This is the use of social media to disseminate what he calls false accusations.
Spreading misinformation, basically.
Yes, but it goes beyond just posting lies. He says it's escalated to intimidation. He says he has received direct messages, DMs, telling him flat out that they will not stop until he resigns.
That is attrition warfare. That is not about winning an argument on the merits. It's about exhaustion. It's about psychological pressure. We will just keep pinging your phone. We'll keep posting your name. We will keep tagging you in angry posts until you just give up and quit.
And the recruitment aspect, he alleges, is even more insidious. He claims that people are being approached specifically to manufacture complaints.
Wait, to make things up.
To make things up.
Yeah.
Think about the implications of that for a moment. If you're a citizen and you have a genuine grievance against a government body, voicing that is democracy. That's how it's supposed to work.
Right.
But if someone approaches you and says, hey, why don't you make up a story about the Committee for Home Affairs so we can get rid of Leadbeater? That's something else entirely. That is weaponized grievance.
It creates a simulated reality. If you just look at this Facebook page, it looks like the entire island is on fire with rage. But is it?
No.
Or is it just this small army using, digital megaphones to amplify the noise and make it look like a majority opinion?
That's the core of his claim, and it brings us to this mastermind theory. Leadbeater says he knows who is behind it. He claims it's an unnamed individual who is orchestrating the whole thing.
But he won't name them. That's the part that, I don't know, it's so theatrical. If you know who is trying to systematically destroy your career, why not just say, it's Bob from St. Peter Port? Why keep it a secret?
Well, it's a calculated move, I think. By not naming them, Leadbeater maintains a certain level of, let's say, dignity. He's not getting down in the mud and naming names. He's above the fray.
Okay, I can see that.
But psychologically, it also creates this cloud of paranoia over the political class. Is it a fellow deputy? Is it a disgruntled former employee? Is it a business rival from his past? It turns the entire political landscape into a mystery novel where everyone is a potential suspect.
It's very much I know something you don't know power play. But I want to talk about the human element here because there was one detail in the sources that I found absolutely fascinating. Leadbeater didn't just, hide in his office and block people on social media.
No, he did something quite unusual.
He actually met with some of these critics.
Yes. He stepped out from behind the screen. He arranged face-to-face meetings with 3 of his harshest online critics.
And what happened? What was the outcome?
According to him, 2 of them completely changed their minds after speaking with him.
2 out of 3. That is a pretty incredible conversion rate. I mean, you'd take those odds in any debate.
It speaks volumes, doesn't it? It speaks about the fundamental nature of digital rage versus actual human interaction. When you are typing a furious comment on your phone, you are attacking an avatar. You're attacking the president. You're attacking a pixelated image of a man you've never met.
A caricature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when you sit down for a coffee, you're not talking to the president. You're talking to Mark. You see the human being. You hear the tone of his voice. You see his facial expressions. All the nuance that just doesn't fit in a 280-character comment box suddenly appears.
It's the barstool effect. If you're at home shouting at the politician on your TV, you're angry at this distant figure. But if that same person walked into your local pub and shook your hand, the anger usually just evaporates.
Precisely. And for Leadbeater, it validates his claim that the digital narrative is distorted, that it's not the full picture. But, and this is the huge problem for him, you cannot have coffee with every single voter. You can't have a personal meeting with everyone in the Facebook group.
The scale is the issue.
The small army operates at scale. Personal charm operates one-on-one. The math simply does not work in his favor.
And the other thing that doesn't work in his favor is the fact that the small army, whoever they are, has plenty of real-world ammunition. This isn't a campaign that's just based on thin air and rumors.
No, not at all. Which brings us to Section 2, the fuel, the real-world problems.
Right.
We have to be very, very clear about this. The small army might be using dirty tactics. They might be exaggerating for effect, but they aren't hallucinating the core problems. The Committee for Home Affairs has had a genuinely terrible few months.
So let's start with the Princess Elizabeth Hospital security breach. This happened in February 2026, so it's fresh. This story, honestly, as I was reading it, it made my skin crawl a little bit. It's the kind of thing that public safety nightmares are made of.
It's a profound, almost unbelievable failure of protocol. So let's just lay out the facts as they were reported. You have a prisoner, and not just any prisoner, a convicted sex offender, specifically a pedophile.
So a high-risk individual by any possible definition.
The highest risk. He is transferred from the prison to the main public hospital, the PEH, for some kind of medical treatment.
Now, in any jurisdiction in the world, the protocol for that is strict. You'd expect guards, restraints, locked doors. You don't just drop them off the front desk and say, see you later.
You would think so.
Yeah.
But a whistleblower, a healthcare worker at the hospital, came forward with this incredibly damning account. They claimed this prisoner was left in an unlocked private room. Unlocked, with no prison escort physically in the room with them, no physical restraints.
And this room wasn't in some special high-security wing of the hospital.
No, according to the whistleblower, it was easily accessible to a main open ward. Anyone could walk past.
And the visual, the specific detail the whistleblower gave is the one that really sticks in your mind. It's the thing that turns a story from a report into a headline.
Yes.
They claimed the prisoner, who's supposedly immobile or at least bedbound, was actually up and walking around the room. And the kicker, he allegedly waved. He waved at a young family with children who were walking past the room.
Just pause on that image for a second. Put yourself in that hallway.
Yeah.
You are a parent. You are walking through a hospital, which you assume is a place of safety,
Right.
holding your child's hand. And a convicted sex offender waves at you from an unsecured room.
It's horrifying.
That isn't just a policy failure. That strikes a primal nerve. It completely shatters the social contract. You expect the state, above all else, to keep dangerous people away from your children.
And Leadbeater's initial response to this, it felt a bit bureaucratic, didn't it? It felt very much like a prepared statement.
It did. He initially came out and claimed the safeguards in place were appropriate. He said the individual was managed successfully and that there were no inappropriate interactions.
But waving at a kid is an inappropriate interaction if you are a convicted pedophile in an unsecured hospital room. The interaction itself is the problem.
Exactly. And that disconnect between the official line of everything is fine, protocols were followed, nothing to see here, and the whistleblower's visceral account of there was a monster in the hallway, that creates a massive truth gap.
And into that gap steps the small army.
Of course. They can just point and say, look, they are lying to you. They're putting your children at risk, and then they're telling you it was appropriate. It's the most powerful political attack imaginable.
And then the whole situation gets even more complicated because the prisoner in question later died, which makes the whole review process messy and, it's harder to get answers.
It does, but in a way, the political damage was already done. The seed of doubt, or rather the seed of terror, was planted. And it's not just an isolated incident at the hospital. The prison itself, Le McCall, seems to be in a state of genuine crisis.
The headline here is Crisis in Corrections.
It is. In early 2026, just before this hospital incident, there was a suicide in custody.
Which is a profound tragedy in any circumstance, and it always raises questions about the duty of care the state has.
It is. But it happened shortly after what the sources called 2 other high-profile incidents at the prison. We don't have the full details on what those were, but the frequency is alarming. It paints a picture of an institution that is struggling.
And it's not just the inmates. There are staff issues, big ones.
This is a huge red flag. In late 2025, so just a few months prior, one prison staff member was jailed and another was arrested.
Wait, a prison guard was jailed? For what?
The sources don't specify the exact crimes, but it does almost matter what they were. When you have prison guards becoming prisoners themselves, you have a serious systemic problem with institutional culture. It suggests corruption or negligence or a complete breakdown of internal discipline.
So the critics, the small army, they look at all this, the suicide, the incidents, the staff criminality, the hospital breach, and they say, this is institutional rot.
And can you really blame them? If the people who are supposed to be running the prison are getting arrested and the people inside the prison are dying or escaping supervision at the hospital, the narrative writes itself. It looks like a system in complete freefall.
So what's Leadbeater's response to this wider prison crisis?
He says he is open to an independent review.
Yeah.
He says he wants to get to the bottom of it, but, and there's always a but in politics, isn't there?
Always.
He wants to wait. He says they should wait for the ombudsman's report on the deaths in custody first before launching a wider, more comprehensive review of the whole prison system.
We need to wait for the report. It's the classic political shield. It sounds reasonable on the surface.
It is logical from a purely governance perspective. You don't want two investigations stepping on each other's toes. You want the facts from one before you start the next. But politically, in the middle of a firestorm like this, it looks like stalling.
It looks like kicking the can down a road while the building is on fire.
Precisely. It doesn't satisfy the public's very real need for immediate action and reassurance. It feels like bureaucracy in the face of crisis.
So we have this digital army relentlessly attacking him, and we have the prison and the hospital effectively catching fire around him. And in the middle of all this, he decides to pick a major fight with a political colleague.
Yes. Let's move to Section 3, the Kurganvin expulsion.
This feels like throwing gasoline on the fire.
This is where the narrative shifts from just incompetence allegations to cover-up allegations. This is the structural fight that really energizes his opponents.
So introduce us to Deputy Rob Kurganvin. He's another politician. He's known as a bit of a reformer, right? He's a guy who likes to ask the tough questions.
That's his brand. He has very successfully positioned himself as the champion of transparency and accountability. He's the guy who stands up in the assembly and says, "Why are we doing it this way? Who is watching the watchman?"
And he was appointed to a new political oversight group. What was this group supposed to do?
It was a big deal. This group was specifically created to review police complaints. It was meant to be a mechanism to restore public trust in law enforcement by having elected politicians independently check the homework of the police.
So it's an internal affairs committee, but for politicians to oversee the police.
Exactly. It was meant to be the body that proved the police were accountable to the public. But then, in January 2026, the Committee for Home Affairs, which is Leadbeater's committee, kicked him out.
They fired the watchdog.
Essentially, yes. They held a vote, and the committee voted unanimously to expel him from the oversight group.
On what grounds? What was the official reason they gave?
The official reason was a breach of terms of engagement. Leadbeater argued that Kurganvin had violated the confidentiality rules that all members had agreed to. Specifically, he accused Kurganvin of commenting on live police investigations on social media.
Okay, let's play devil's advocate for a second. If you are on an oversight committee that sees sensitive police data, you probably shouldn't be on Twitter giving hot takes about ongoing murder investigations. That seems like a fair and necessary rule.
It is a perfectly fair and necessary rule. If it's true. And this is where we get into the he said, she said part of the story. Kurganvin says it's not true. He flatly denies breaching any terms. He basically says, show me the tweets. Show me the evidence. What exactly did I say that breached the rules?
And did they? Did Leadbeater's committee provide that evidence?
According to Kurganvin, no. He claims that no specific evidence was ever provided to him. He even goes further and claims that Leadbeater shared false information with other politicians about the specific reasons for his removal.
So Kurganvin spins this immediately. He doesn't take it lying down. He says, I'm not being fired because I tweeted something inappropriate. I'm being fired because I was asking too many questions. I was getting too close to the truth. I'm being silenced.
And that is an incredibly powerful narrative, especially when your brand is the transparency guy. In the story of the small army, Deputy Kurganvin becomes the martyr. He is the brave whistleblower, the lone voice of reason, being crushed by the corrupt establishment that wants to keep its secrets.
The optics are just terrible for Leadbeater, even if he's 100% right. Even if Kurganvin was a complete loose cannon who couldn't be trusted, removing him makes it look like the Committee for Home Affairs has something to hide.
It reinforces the worst possible interpretation of their actions. Leadbeater's committee frames their position as guarding neutrality and independence, which in this context sounds a lot like code for keep it in the room, don't air our dirty laundry.
Right. Let the professionals handle it.
Meanwhile, Kurganvin frames himself as the champion of openness and accountability, which is code for tell the public everything. These two worldviews collided, and Leadbeater chose control over the appearance of transparency.
And that decision galvanized his opposition. It gave them a hero, a figurehead to rally around. But if you think that's messy, wait until we get to the cannabis policy. Section 4, the cannabis receipt and the conflict of interest.
This is the major policy fight that underpins everything else that's going on. Leadbeater isn't just a manager putting out fires. He's an active reformer trying to push through a massive, controversial piece of legislation.
Right. He's the lead signatory on a recreat, which is basically a petition from politicians to force a debate and a vote in the states, their parliament.
And the topic is the full legalization and regulation of the cannabis market in Guernsey.
Which is a huge deal. Guernsey is, by reputation, a pretty conservative place. Legalizing weed is a big, big swing.
It is. And his arguments for it are, on the surface, sound public policy arguments. He says the current system is a two-tier failure.
Explain that two-tier concept for us. What does he mean by that?
It's about access based on wealth. Since 2020, medicinal cannabis has been technically legal in Guernsey. But to get it, you have to go to a private clinic to get a prescription. That costs a lot of money. The initial consultation costs money, the follow-up appointments cost money, and the product itself is expensive.
So if you are wealthy and you have, say, chronic pain or anxiety, you can get high-quality, lab-tested, legal cannabis delivered to your door in a nice, clean plastic tub.
Correct. But what if you're poor? What if you have the same conditions but can't afford the clinic fees? You go to the black market. You buy street weed.
Which might be contaminated, you have no idea of its strength, and it definitely funds criminal gangs.
And if you get caught with it, you get arrested, and you get a criminal record, which can affect your whole life.
So the rich get medicine, the poor get criminal records for the same substance.
That is Leadbeater's central argument. He wants to level that playing field, regulate it all, tax it all, and use the police resources that are currently wasted on chasing small-time cannabis users for, real crimes like the rise in synthetic opioids or violent crime. It's a logical, progressive argument.
It sounds good on paper, but, and it's a very big but, Leadbeater has a past.
The House of Green.
It sounds like a Game of Thrones spinoff, but tell us what it actually was.
There was a local Guernsey company involved in cannabis and hemp cultivation and production, and Mark Leadbeater was a director of that company.
Was. Past tense is the key word there.
Yes. The public record is very clear. He resigned his directorship and divested his shares in 2021. He cut all formal ties. But in a small island community, people have very long memories.
And the small army has been digging deep into this history.
The rumors started flying thick and fast in February 2026. Oh, he still owns shares secretly. He just transferred them to his cousin to hide his involvement. He's still selling equipment to the industry. He's only doing this for the money.
They are trying to paint a picture of a man who is using his political power to legalize a drug so that he and his friends can get rich selling it. It's the ultimate conflict of interest accusation.
And it's so effective because it completely undermines his moral argument about the two-tier system and replaces it with a simple, ugly motive. Greed.
And this leads us to my absolute favorite detail in this entire saga. It is a moment of pure political absurdity. The forklift defense.
I knew you would love the forklift.
I have to love the forklift. It's the perfect moment of dark comedy amidst all this high-stakes political tragedy.
So Leadbeater found himself in a position where he had to come out and publicly defend himself against these swirling rumors that he was secretly selling industry equipment and profiting from the cannabis trade.
And his defense was, guys, it was a forklift.
A truck, some old carpentry tools, and a forklift that I have personally owned for 9 years.
It's so mundane. It's so gloriously, wonderfully absurd. Here you have the president of Home Affairs being accused of being this drug kingpin mastermind, and his rebuttal is, I just sold my old forklift.
It is funny, but it's also deeply tragic in a way. It shows how low the bar for scandal is dropped. In a toxic political environment, selling a piece of used farm equipment becomes prima facie evidence of an international drug conspiracy.
The mud just sticks, doesn't it? But Leadbeater makes a really interesting and quite clever point in his defense here. He says, look, if I succeed in getting this requête passed and the government creates a state-regulated cannabis market, that might actually hurt private businesses like the House of Green.
He's arguing that a state-run or highly regulated taxed market is actually bad for the existing private players. It introduces competition they don't currently have. So if he was still secretly involved, he'd effectively be voting against his own financial interest.
But does logic like that even matter in a situation like this, when the narrative is already set?
Rarely. In the court of public opinion, especially on a fiery Facebook page, the perception of bias is more than enough to convict. He was a weed guy. Now he's the weed politician. The nuance of when he sold his shares or who bought his secondhand forklift just gets completely lost in the noise.
And this isn't the first time his pass as the weed guy has caused him political problems. This really brings us to Section 5, the pattern. There's a history here.
This is absolutely crucial context. To understand Mark Leadbeater today, you have to understand that he is what I'd call a boomerang politician.
Yeah.
He leaves and he always comes back.
The cycle: resignation, marginalization, return.
Let's go back to 2017. He was on the Education Committee. He resigned. Now, that was a messy time in Guernsey politics. It involved the hugely divisive 11-plus school selection vote, which is a whole other deep dive for another day.
Right.
But there was also a very personal, emotional layer to his resignation. He claimed at the time that he felt he was discouraged from running for a leadership position because he had a disabled child, and people thought he wouldn't have the time.
So he walks away. He puts his family first, but he doesn't stay away for long.
No. But the real echo, the true prequel to what's happening today, is 2021. He was on the Committee for Home Affairs, the exact same committee he runs now. But the president back then was a different deputy, Rob Prow.
Rob Prow. He was seen as the law and order sheriff, right? The tough on crime guy.
Exactly. Prow was former border agency, very traditional, very by the book on law enforcement. And you had Leadbeater, the reformer, the guy talking about legalizing drugs. They were destined to clash.
Oil and water.
And they did. Leadbeater ended up resigning from that committee, accusing Prow of shunning him. He said Prow wouldn't let him lead on any policy areas because of his drug reform views. Leadbeater felt he was being deliberately pushed into a corner, marginalized.
So he quits again. He essentially says, I can't work with these dinosaurs.
But then the 2025 election happens, and Leadbeater doesn't just come back to the committee, he comes back and takes Prow's job.
That is quite the comeback. It's a political revenge arc worthy of a movie.
It is. He returns as the president. He replaces the very man who he felt had marginalized him. But, and here's the key insight for today's crisis, by doing that, he inherits all of Rob Prow's old enemies, and he creates a whole new set of his own.
The people who liked Prow's law and order style, they now see Leadbeater as this radical reformer who is soft on crime. And the people who liked Prow personally now see Leadbeater as a usurper.
So he's leading a department where a significant portion of the staff or the stakeholders in the community might secretly prefer the old boss and resent him for being there.
He's a destabilizing figure by his very nature.
And he's not afraid to break things on a bigger scale. Remember, late 2023, Leadbeater was one of the key deputies who signed the motion of no confidence against the Policy and Resources Committee.
That was the big bang of the last political term. They took down the entire top government body, the senior committee. It was a political earthquake.
And Leadbeater helped wield the axe. He helped establish the precedent that you can remove a government midterm if you can build enough of a coalition against them.
Oh, the irony. The delicious, bitter irony. He taught them that it's okay to oust the leaders if you don't like them, and now they're trying to oust him using the same playbook of popular pressure.
He normalized political instability. He showed that the sword of no confidence works. Now, a digital version of that same sword is being pointed directly at his own neck.
So let's zoom out. We have the drama, the weed, the forklift, the prison crisis, the revenge arc. But what does all of this tell us about the future of governance in a place like Guernsey? Section 6, systemic analysis.
It tells us, I think, that the committee system of government is incredibly fragile in the digital age. It's uniquely vulnerable to this kind of attack.
Explain that for the listeners who are more used to parliaments or congresses with political parties. How is the committee system so different and so vulnerable?
Okay, think about it this way. In the UK or the US, if you're a government minister and you get attacked, the party steps in. If a labor minister gets attacked on Twitter, the Labor Party's entire machinery kicks into gear.
You get talking points sent out to other MPs, the PR team goes into overdrive.
The whips make calls to ensure loyalty. You have a whole tribe descending to protect you. You have a political shield wall.
And in Guernsey,
there are no parties. Every deputy is an independent. Mark Leadbeater is an island, both literally and figuratively. When the small army comes for him, he's standing alone on the ramparts.
He has to write his own press releases. He has to check his own DMs. There is no machine to back him up.
It's an incredibly lonely and exposed position. It is incredibly vulnerable. It means a small, well-organized group can isolate and overwhelm a political leader much more easily than they ever could in a party-based system.
And what about this small army precedent? If this works, if they actually harass him and bully him into resigning, What does that mean for democracy on the island?
It changes the game entirely. It marks a fundamental shift from consensus government to adversarial populist government.
It means you don't need to win an election to change the government. You just need a popular Facebook page and some aggressive anonymous tactics.
It completely bypasses the ballot box. It creates what you could call a shadow veto. If a specialized vocal interest group can create enough social and political pain for a politician, they can effectively veto that person's career, even if they were democratically elected.
That is a dangerous, dangerous precedent for any small community.
It is. It means that in the future, only the most thick-skinned or perhaps the most shameless will be willing to run for public office.
So Leadbeater is fighting for his job, but in a much larger sense, he's also fighting for the principle that you shouldn't be bullied out of office by a digital mob. So can he survive this?
I see 3 key factors that will likely determine his political fate over the next few months.
Hit me. What's factor number 1?
The institutional reviews. The official independent reports on the hospital security breach and the deaths in custody at the prison.
These are the ticking time bombs under his desk.
Absolutely. If those reports come back and say, look, these were tragic but unavoidable incidents and protocols were mostly followed, he might just survive it. But if they come back and say this was gross negligence and a result of systemic failure by the Committee for Home Affairs,
he's done.
She is dead in the water.
Yeah.
You cannot politically survive a finding of gross negligence connected to a death in state custody. No amount of political skill fixes that.
Okay, factor 2.
The cannabis vote. The requête.
This is his flagship policy, his big reform.
It is. It's his reason for being there in a way. If he wins that vote, if the state's assembly agrees to legalize cannabis, he has a powerful mandate. He can turn around and say, look, the people, the real people represented by their elected deputies, not the Facebook people, are with me. The states are with me. We are moving forward. It validates him as a leader who can get big things done despite the noise.
But if he loses that vote...
If he loses, he's a lame duck. He's the reformer who couldn't reform. He becomes politically weak. And when you are weak, the small army smells blood in the water.
And the final factor. Factor number 3.
It's simply the persistence of the campaign. Can he outlast them?
A sheer contest of stamina. Who blinks first?
It is. But it's also a contest of political capital. It's an election year soon. His colleagues in the states, the other deputies, are all watching this very, very closely. If Mark Leadbeater becomes politically toxic, if standing next to him means you get attacked by the small army online, they will start to distance themselves.
The cooties factor of politics. You don't want to be associated with the guy everyone is throwing rocks at.
Essentially. If he becomes a liability to their own re-election chances, they will throw him overboard to save the ship. It's ruthless, but it's politics.
It's a brutal world, politics, even on a nice, polite little island with famous cows.
Especially on a nice island. The pond is smaller, so the ripples from every stone that's thrown hit every single person standing on the shore.
So let's try and wrap this all up. We have a reformer, Deputy Mark Leadbeater, who is trying to push through a landmark change to the island's drug laws. At the same time, he is facing a relentless digital revolt that feels like a plot from a thriller movie.
And all of this is set against a backdrop of the prison and the main hospital facing what appeared to be their worst operational crises in years. It is the very definition of a perfect storm.
Leadbeater himself calls this campaign against him a distraction. He says, just let me do my job. But here is the final provocative thought I want to leave with you, our listener.
Go on.
In a democracy, is public outcry, even when it is organized on Facebook, even when it gets nasty and personal, even when it uses anonymous accounts, is it ever really a distraction? Or is it just the new and frankly ugly face of accountability?
That is the really uncomfortable truth at the heart of this, isn't it?
Yeah.
We might hate the methods, we might despise the bullying and the personal attacks, but if the hospital isn't safe and the prison is in crisis, isn't the small army asking the right questions, even if they're doing it in the absolute wrong way?
And if the small army wins this fight, who is next? Because once you build a weapon that can take down a government minister from a keyboard, you don't just put that weapon away and forget about it.
No, you find a new target.
That is the real danger, isn't it? The small army might disband after this is over, or it might just become a permanent populist militia in Guernsey politics.
A very sobering thought.
It is. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us. It's been a wild ride through the granite and the grievance of modern island politics.
Always a pleasure.
And to our listener, watch out for rogue forklifts, Keep your social media passwords safe and maybe, just maybe, go have a coffee with someone you disagree with. It seems to work a lot better than a Facebook comment. We'll see you next time.